Hi, I'm Rick Snyder. We've talked about this forever. Pizza and pigskin tours, where we eat pizza, we walk around, see a little bit of historical sites and all that. Well, it's finally happening. You can go to my website, monumentalthoughts.com, and see where how you can get tickets. The tickets do include the price of pizza and non-alcoholic drinks. Pay for your own beer. But we're going to walk around Georgetown, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. I'm going to show you a lot of cool stuff. Then we're just going to sit and talk and eat pizza and whatever you want to ask, I'll talk about, as long as they don't get me in court. So make sure you come and see the pizza and pigskin tours at monumentalthoughts.com, and I'll be eating pizza with you soon.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hogside. This is your host, Alex East, calling at you. I hope you're all having a great summer. I'm on the second weekend of my vacation, so that's nice. I sound a lot more laid back, I'm sure, Steve.
Yeah, you said calling at you, which is a bit of an odd phrasing, but I understand how that goes when you do all these live broadcasts. Sometimes still comes out garbled.
Yeah, sometimes you're thinking of like 8 different things at once, and that's what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, of course, Steve with me. No Jamal today. I don't know what he's up to. He's always doing his like flag football this time of year, so it's tricky to get him sometimes.
Jamal's missing in action right now.
Yeah, he is. But that's okay. We have plenty to talk about this week because training camp was back in Richmond. So players were actually doing football things, as they say. That's nice. Yeah.
This off season's been way too long.
Way too long. Very low key off season for this team. Minus the owner like getting kicked out for a little while and all that stuff. It was
they had massive off the field drama, but little team drama.
Right. Which usually leads to good things. Honestly, the less team drama, the better.
It's amazing that they haven't had team drama, really. Yeah. I mean, considering I said this before. I mean, the amount of front office nonsense that's gone on would bring down a lot of teams. It takes a very strong coach to keep all of that away from the players.
It does, but at the same time, I think here in Washington, what you see, Steve, is that fans, it's basically like, how like emperors would drink a little poison every day to make themselves immune from getting poisoned? Like that old story. Fans are like that with off-season drama and the front office here in D.C.
Well, I just think we're so used to it at this point that it's like, what's more drama?
Well, we're not, or we're numb to it, that's the thing. Well, let's get started with the show a little bit here. Steve, you said there's some roster updates you want to mention?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of rosters, so I'm just going to sort of give a status of where we are now.
Okay.
Because there's been a lot of roster updates and a lot of things the team has done. First of all, there are 83 players active and participating on the active training camp roster. Now, David Bada, I count him as being in the International Pathway Program still, which leaves him off of the total player count. Depending on what source you check, he's either on or off the International Pathway Program. So I'm not 100% sure, but I leave him on the program because I think that's where he is. So there's 84. Now, they've had people bouncing on and off injury lists and stuff. So I'm going to skip all that. As of Saturday morning, which is when we're recording this, what we're left with here is Greg Stroman is on the PUP list. DeShazer Everett is on the active non-football illness list, which, to be perfectly honest, I didn't even know there was a such thing until DeShazer Everett got put on it. But that's the list he's on. And then we have a whole bunch of people on the coronavirus list. Cornelius Lucas was the first one that got put on here.
Right.
Then we got Matt Ioannidis, Chris Miller, and Curtis Samuel. Now, there was a bit of drama with Matt Ioannidis, and that his fiance, I believe it was, says he didn't test positive, and that he was negative. But the bottom line is the team didn't believe that, and so all 4 of these guys are on the COVID list now. A lot of depending when they come back depends on a lot of factors. Okay, right. So the NFL has gone nutsy cuckoo with their COVID rules, like to the point of absurdity about it. I think the world generally has, frankly, but that's another topic for another show, probably. So the bottom line here is that if these players are vaccinated, then essentially I think all they need to do is test negative again and they're back. Wherein if they aren't vaccinated, then they're going to sit out a minimum of 10 days. Now, if they have symptoms, no matter if they're vaccinated or not, then I would assume their symptoms have to go away first. So there's a lot of things. We don't know who's vaccinated and who's not. I mean, again, there's been tons of drama, which makes me want to hang myself to have to dive into that. So we don't really know who's vaccinated or not. So the bottom line is we don't really know when any of these 4 players are going to come back. I mean, Ioannidis is important. Curtis Samuel's important.
Right. Lucas is important.
Yeah, Chris Miller, Chris is important to Chris, but he's not a huge factor in terms of practice and getting people, the groups in shape for the season. So those those 3 are important, though.
They are, and it is interesting to note that we know Ioannidis had COVID last year as well. So this could be, in theory, his second time getting COVID.
Well, it could also just be, a lot of times these tests are essentially false positives in that these tests will come out and find one single dead cell in your nose, and that pops positive. We don't really know.
It depends on which type of test and all that stuff. We don't know all those details.
So it certainly doesn't mean that he's had it twice. It means he's tested positive twice. That's about all we can really conclude.
Right. But, it's not good. You want to see those 3 guys out there, especially now that we're in, the camp part. We're not in OTAs. We're not in, rookie camp. We're in actual learn the plays, get rhythm down part of camp.
It's the important stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of the COVID stuff, I mean, Montez Sweat has been all in the news about his views on vaccinations. And unless you want to get into it, Alex, I really it makes me want to hang myself to have to talk about it. So I really don't, because it doesn't really matter is the other thing.
Well,
to us.
No, it doesn't really matter in the end. But, the only other part about it that did kind of come out in the news with that was the Ron Rivera speaking out how frustrated he was. But again, he just said he's frustrated, wants more people vaccinated, and that's it. You're
going to get me on a tangent about this. I don't want to go down. So let me finish the roster. So those are the people that are not on the active roster. Mm-hmm. And again, there's been people that have bounced back and forth off this illness list and stuff. But they've signed a couple guys too. So they signed somebody named Bunmi Rotimi, who I've never heard of Bunmi Rotimi until he appeared on the roster. Defensive lineman.
It sounds like a made-up name, honestly.
Well, I think his name is actually Olu Bunmi, and he goes by Bunmi because that's what Washington has it listed as. But the original press release said Olu Bunmi. And forget, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. But regardless, 6'4", 269, undrafted free agent, 2018 out of Old Dominion. So I'm assuming our buddy Robbie Duncan probably knows him to some extent or another.
Yeah. I remember Robbie tweeting something how excited he was to see another ODU guy there. So. Oh,
okay. Well, there. So Robbie does know him in some way. And then we have another defensive lineman, defensive end, really, Justice Reed. Justice spelled Justus, which sounds like somebody's parents couldn't spell justice. But 6'3", 255, 2021 undrafted free agent out of Virginia Tech. So that's that. And then they have a new tight end as well, who the team signed. Nick, I'm going to mispronounce this too, Gugemos, I guess. Guggemos. Nick Gugemos, I guess. And he is a 2021 undrafted free agent out of St. Thomas, Minnesota, as opposed to St. Thomas, Houston. So those are the 3 new guys, and that makes 84 if you count David Bada, 83 if you don't. So that is the roster update. Now I have the salary cap at 9.7 No, that's yes, 9.7 under free under the rule of 51. There's a wide variety of opinions about it. Mine's a bit lower than others, but I stand by my calculations.
Okay.
But so it's somewhere between what I have and 16 million because I've seen every estimate between there.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that because the next thing I want to bring up with this, in this episode was the fact that we had a couple last minute re-signings.
Yeah, that's
that
right. I forgot.
Those were big news. That Logan Thomas and Jonathan Allen are now kind of wrapped up for the next couple of years. Thomas, I believe the number I saw, Steve, and you might have found more accurate. I heard 24. What is that right?
Yeah, no, it's 24. It's 24 million.
Yeah.
I didn't update. I updated the details, but not the. No,
well,
I don't have. I thought I had. I've got. Yeah, I thought I had. But yeah, it's 3 years, 24 million. It's
right.
an extension, so that takes him through the 2024 season. I thought I had the detail. I don't have the details yet.
Right, which will take him to 32, 33, something like that.
Yeah.
Which, so probably wraps him up for his career for the most part. And 7 million feels like it's a fairly reasonable contract for a good tight end, though. And as far as a pass catching tight end, he was great last year. So the production, if we get that kind of production the next few years, I think that's a steal, honestly.
Oh, it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he fooled all of us. I didn't really expect much from him. I know I didn't. And turns out Ron Rivera knows more about football than the fans do.
Right.
Imagine that.
Who'd have thunk? Yeah. So that one was good. And then let's talk about the Jonathan Allen one, which I think that's the big deal that everyone's, everyone was waiting for this because, you had to get Allen done. Now you can work on Payne and then Sweat and then keep on going on and on and on with these star defensive linemen that we have that they want to build this defense around. But Allen signs a 4-year extension.
Yeah.
And it's 72, is that right? 30 guaranteed?
4 years, 72 million, 30 million signing bonus.
Right.
I don't have the structure details again. Those I've looked and couldn't find anything. So I don't know. The salary cap number is not going to change this year.
Right.
They didn't amend this year, so he's going to stay at a little over 10. But in terms of what happens next year, don't know. But yeah, the bottom line is 4 year. He signed through 2025. 4 years, 72 million, 30 million guaranteed. Which appears to be a signing bonus, which would mean that is prorated through 2025. So,
right.
But it's hard to tell, because you could play around with the base salary and stuff. So we really don't know what it's going to be. But I think it's a great signing.
I mean, you kind of had to do it. He's been playing, even though he hasn't been a Pro Bowler or anything like that. He's been playing well. So I think you kind of had to get that deal done. He is very much a leader on the team, in terms of like being a team captain type personality. So I think he was important to get in there. And like I said, now you can focus on Payne or Ioannidis next year. You can focus on.
I think Allen benefited on just going first. It really makes me wonder if all 3 of these guys had come up for free agency on the same year, who they would pick.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, I think it might be a different story, but Allen is first, and he's just not a guy that you want to let walk because he's, like you said, he's a great team leader.
Right.
He's a regional native. He's from, 5 minutes from Ashburn.
Yeah, he grew up in Ashburn still. He could walk to Redskins Park from probably his childhood home or something,
Yeah, right. And he's been a good but not great player. I think his value I think he has more value to the team than his stats maybe show. I guess say it like that. So I definitely think that I'm glad they kept him. 4 years, $72 million puts the average annual value at 18 million a year.
Right. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if it's not. I'd assume it's either backloaded or something though. With that, that seems high for what he's.
Well, that's just average annual value. That has nothing to do with annual cap hit. That just average annual value is just the total amount of the deal divided by the number of years, and that's agents use that a lot. When they're bragging about themselves, and it's a decent way to sort of imprecisely show the value of a contract. But what really matters is the
bonuses,
guaranteed money.
Yeah.
and annual cap hit. So what I propose I wrote a long piece of, I don't know, a month ago maybe, about how they could re-sign all these defensive linemen, and what Washington has a history of doing is having a very low year one cap hit, so they'll bring their base down to minimum, and so then the cap hit is basically just the signing bonus, prorated part of the signing bonus. So they could do that. It's just impossible to know.
Right. I mean, we don't know for sure, like you said. You kind of hope that they're being smart about this so that they can keep at least their 4 first rounders long term, or at least have the space to do it.
Well, that's the idea. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. I was a little surprised that they didn't try to put any of the money in this year, because I feel like, don't they how much cap space did you say they have right now?
Well, I've got it at 9.7. You know, other sources have it at higher, but that's what I have it as. But the bottom line is somewhere between what I said and maybe 15 million.
All right. So,
they have some rollover space where they could, if they wanted.
That's true. They can roll that over if they need to.
No. I mean, like, they have some empty space wherein they could have dumped some of Allen's cap hit into this year a little bit. That's what I'm
saying. Yeah. I'm guessing agents just don't go for that very often.
No, the agents care about guaranteed money more than anything. They don't care about cap hit. I mean, that has nothing to do with them. The agents care about getting the most money they can as soon as they can. So your average agent would want all the money in a signing bonus, So, no, I mean, I think they definitely would have taken Allen's agent. Definitely, if Washington said, hey, we want to throw your 5th-year option contract in the trash can and redo it, and give you all the money up front, they probably would have, gone for it.
Yeah, maybe. All right, so those were the 2 big signings, which are good news. No move on Brandon Scherf, which is also big news. But I think that we covered that last week, right? Because the time frame for that had sailed.
And from the CBA now governs this.
Right.
The Washington can't negotiate with him anymore until after the season. So he will be a free agent absent them tagging him a 3rd time, which would be insane.
Yeah. Well, why don't we move on and talk about some of the stuff that came out of camp? It was actually fairly quiet from Richmond, it seemed like. Even though I was on vacation and, you were at work, so we weren't down there, I'm watching Twitter here and there. And it just didn't seem like a whole lot happened. I'll tell you, there was a minor injury to Cam Sims that I heard about that everyone was freaked out about at first, but they're saying he's fine. Like, he needed help off the field, but I guess it was just some kind of tweak in his leg, they're saying. They didn't even give details on what exactly it was. Rivera just said he'll be okay. It sounded like Sam Cosmi did a lot of work. There was a funny little quote. I don't know if you saw this, Steve. Chase Young was talking about what his job is in training camp, and he basically said, I want to beat up Sam Cosmi all the time. That's his job.
And it's not because he doesn't like Sam Cosmi.
No.
What he's saying is he's trying to prepare Cosmi to start in the NFL. That's what he's saying.
Exactly. But, that's true, though. That's the point of training camp. It's put your best players against these guys to see if they can make them improve. And, you do it by getting your butt kicked a lot of times.
Well, I mean, one of the open questions about this team is offensive line.
Sure.
Because we don't know if Cosmi's even going to start. I mean, I would assume he would. But, I mean, we don't know, because you've got, I mean, the only thing I think we know tackle-wise is that Charles Leno is definitely the left tackle. But in terms of who's the right tackle, maybe it's Cosmi, maybe it's Lucas. I mean, it's not even beyond the realm of possible. It's Sadiq Charles even starts. I mean, who knows? So I like the fact that Chase is saying, hey, we're going to go all out. We're going to try to make him better.
Right.
I think that's only good. If there's one thing I think we've all learned about Ron Rivera, it's that Ron is all about competition. Mm-hmm. More than every coach says it, but I think Ron actually means it more so than others. He's serious about competition issues. Like, for example, The Athletic had a story about Taylor Heineke.
Right.
Taylor was trying to push, Ryan Fitzpatrick. And frankly, I think Taylor's problems is less talent and more that he can never stay healthy. But regardless, I mean, Taylor Heineke is trying to push Fitzpatrick, and I don't think Ron Rivera would hesitate for a moment to start Heineke if he thought that was the best thing for the team. I don't think it is, but my point is, I think Ron would do that in a heartbeat if he could.
I think you're absolutely right. And, like if you read the quotes from Rivera about Heineke, all the quotes are what you want to hear about any quarterback, that they have a attitude that is infectious with, trying to push the team to, their limits every play, all that kind of stuff. Rivera does, I think, really think highly of Heineke for sure. I would also note on that, the one thing that I saw every day, Heineke seemed like he was the first guy out on the practice field, warming up.
Isn't that smart, though? I mean, if you're
Taylor
Heineke, would you not do that? I mean,
I do that in my everyday life, and I'm not a football player, but I'm one of those guys who've always had that mentality of show up a half hour early, for work, for whatever. Don't be the last guy there, be the first guy there.
Yeah, I am too, but I mean, especially in terms of NFL training camp. I mean,
yeah.
And you're Taylor Heineke. I mean, why would you not go all out? I would be disappointed if you didn't. You know who the forgotten man here is? Kyle Allen in this.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever happened to him? I mean, I realize he's had an injury, but he's not on the PUP list.
No.
He's active for practice. I haven't really seen one single word about him. Makes me wonder, like, did the man fall off the edge of the earth or what?
It does kind of feel that way with him, doesn't it? Like, if you ask fans, it's a QB battle between Heineke and Fitz for whatever that QB battle is. It's not Heineke versus Allen at this point.
No.
It's interesting. But I'm sure we'll see a lot of Kyle Allen in preseason. And, we'll probably get a better feel for both these guys and where they are.
Because he must be healthy. Otherwise, if he wasn't, I think they would have probably put him on PUP.
Yeah.
Just to, as long as possible. So they haven't done that. So he's out there. He just is clearly in third place, or so it appears.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And then I saw that, who's the practice squad guy that we have?
Steven Montez.
Yeah, he was working with the running backs, I saw at one point.
You know who's working with safeties?
Who?
Deshaun Watson.
That's interesting.
It's why is he practicing at all? First of all, why is he allowed in the building? I'll never understand. It's because he's a quarterback and the NFL's weak. But apparently I've seen from Houston media that he's been working with safeties, meaning they're preparing, meaning he's there, but they're preparing to not have him is what that means.
Right, exactly. Because who is it? Tyrod Taylor is going to be their quarterback next year.
Yeah, because Watson's going to be suspended.
At some point, yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of Montez kind of working with other positions because I think, there was some talk early on that Rivera might want him to move positions anyway because he's more of an athletic, all-purpose guy than a true quarterback is how they see it.
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, he's athletic, but I think he is a quarterback. That's not to say he couldn't switch positions, but I don't think he was in college more runner than thrower. I mean, I think he's a thrower at heart. It's not like this is like Troy Smith with Ohio State years ago who won the Heisman. I mean, who just couldn't throw the football. He's a runner. That's not really what Montez is. Yeah, he's athletic. Certainly by Washington quarterbacks room standards because they've got three guys who aren't that athletic.
I don't know about that. I'd actually say this is a modestly athletic. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick is probably the least athletic, and he gets like 250 rushing yards a season.
Maybe, I guess. I don't think of this as a particular athletic quarterback room, but I mean, yes.
I kind of disagree there. I think if you look at their numbers, they're all runners. They're not.
I don't think Fitzpatrick has enough numbers to know whether he's a runner or not. He's played 5 minutes,
Yeah.
But point is, I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with Montez. Mm-hmm. If all four of these guys are healthy, because I know they don't want to cut him, but they also can't keep four guys on the roster. So do they bump Montez to practice squad and keep three on the active? Or do they keep two and cut one of Allen or Heineke?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic of what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be I do think that in the end it's going to be two and a guy on the practice squad. So we'll see how that shakes out, but that's kind of what I see happening.
Hey, off topic. What'd you think of the Aaron Rodgers press conference?
I didn't watch any of it. I'm on vacation. You think I'm going to sit around and watch an Aaron Rodgers press conference?
That's what I would do on vacation.
No.
But maybe
I
that's
go
me. That is
swimming and do
vacation.
archery. That's what I do on vacation. So
Okay, well, so Aaron Rodgers got up in front of the Green Bay media and started naming names and said the I didn't like the way the organization treated guys like Charles Woodson, Randall Cobb, um, who's the tackle. He had a list of like 7 or 8 names, and he was very calm and collected the entire time. It was an impressive performance by him. I mean, I said from the beginning there was no way he wasn't going to report, and I was right. Um, but it was interesting that he was so specific about the things he felt, and so it was an impressive performance, I thought, by Rodgers. So take that for again. I always knew he was going to report, and all you guys who thought he wasn't were crazy. But but that's another team. I just thought it was interesting.
that is interesting. I mean, I did hear that he's basically going to get out next year is what they're saying now.
Well, they changed his contract around, so
Right.
yeah. I mean, he can, yeah. So I think the idea would be let's see how it goes and talk about this later.
Got it.
That's sort of what they did.
Sure. Well, moving back to Washington, the other thing that I saw, Benjamin St. Juice keeps on popping up in every reporter's like, this guy's killing it. This guy's going to be good. Like, it's interesting to me that he's kind of coming on so strong. And I saw that he was playing on the outside and they kicked Fuller back in the slot a lot in camp.
Well, isn't that Fuller's natural spot?
Right. It's what
I
you
mean,
want,
really?
right?
And St. Juice is too big to really, I think, be an effective slot corner. So he's going to be outside or bust. And
Right.
I mean, he's a third-round draft pick. Granted, nobody had ever heard of him before, unless you're really deep into scouting and stuff, But I'd never heard of him before they drafted him.
Well, it's not like
Maybe
he
I
played
saw
for
his-
a major school either. He's kind of
Yeah, I mean,
where Minnesota, like, come
yeah,
on.
I mean, I think I'd seen his name on pre-draft lists and stuff, but I didn't really know much about him. But listen, I mean, it's only a benefit if he can come in and be a starter. I think you want Kendall Fuller in the slot.
Yeah.
If you don't have to play him on the outside, and you have a legitimate outside starter. That helps everybody. So I hope I hope they're absolutely right about it. It's real early though. We'll have to see when he faces real competition.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, that's going to be the case with all these guys. And once we get into preseason, we'll see something, hopefully, like that. Yeah, but
because he fits a weird role. He fits a unique role in this team because he's the only big corner they have.
right.
The only one. I mean, there's a couple other guys who are 6 feet, but I mean, they're all basically small. And you got Danny Johnson, who's he's
Right.
5'9".
Right.
So the only tall corner they have is him. And so I think that was only of a benefit when you face like the other team's versions of Cam Sims, for example.
Right.
It's certainly good to have somebody like that with that body type on the roster. So if he can prove early to be an NFL player, it could actually be a much bigger benefit to the team than people realize.
Yeah, it helps you with some matchups. I've always said that with the NFL, you have so many teams now that have at least one big man on their receiving core. I feel like you need to have at least one guy in the cornerback room who that's his job. It's just a matchup there. So,
Yeah, and Washington hadn't had that for a long time.
Well, I feel like Quentin Dunbar wasn't as big as St. Juice, but he was 6'1". He was big for a corner. So, yeah, but yeah, they generally they haven't had many talented corner. Well, yeah, here and there. They've had some
Dunbar until
talent.
Dunbar held up a poker game.
Well, that was after he left, so that's not our problem.
There was tons of drama with that. I mean, the defense attorney got in trouble for like bribing cops or somebody. I hadn't totally followed it, but there was a ton of legal related drama with that case. And I think him and the other guy, Dunbar and the other guy, I think ended up got the charges dropped because of all the associated, not because they didn't do it, but because of all the drama associated with it.
Yeah. I think that's what's happened. Which I guess good for them. I don't really know. They did some crazy things there.
Well, I mean, it's the way the justice system works. I mean, you have to let the system work.
Yeah. Let's see what else happened in training camp. It, you have something?
Well, yeah, it looks like Terry McLaurin started off where he finished, which is to say, killing everybody again,
Yeah.
which is good to see. And the problem is, of course, that Curtis Samuel hasn't been there because
Right.
Samuel was on COVID, but before that, he was on the illness list. Or was it the illness? It was
I thought it was a minor injury.
yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
it was the non-football injury list, same list that Everett's on.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
But anyway, regardless, he hadn't been there, and so that's a major negative because if Samuel is the gadget guy, they really need to figure out how he's going to fit into the offense. And the longer he's not there, the worse it hurts.
I mean, you see plenty of information that Brown is having a good camp. But yeah, when you see how much Terry and Fitzpatrick seem to be developing chemistry, that's a great sign. It really is.
I just think De'Ami Brown is going to take a while.
I think he will too.
I would ask that fans out there, if you're listening, which you are listening, temper your expectations a little bit because this kid, I don't think he's as fast as people think he is. He is a burner, but he's not. He's a burner by North Carolina standards. I don't know if he's really a burner by NFL standards. And I just think after watching this film that he might take a while to sort of figure out where his place is. I could be totally wrong, and I hope I am. But I don't think he's going to be one of these receivers like Terry who can just hit the ground running from day one. I'm not sure this is De'Ami Brown.
I mean, it's so hard for receivers to really excel that first year or two. It really is.
Yeah.
Terry was an exception. Jameson Crowder, even, I feel like it took him half a season to get on.
Yeah.
But he
came on pretty quick, though.
He did. But I mean, we've been a graveyard for receivers before that, so
it's just awful.
Yeah, fans should keep that in mind.
If you really think about it, if you talk about receivers drafted by Washington who made it in the NFL at a high level, I mean, I struggle to think of anyone since the glory days, since Art Monk, Gary Clark.
Yeah, no, I mean
my buddy Ricky Sanders.
Well, I went back and looked at it once, and basically when it came to draft picks, it was Art Monk, a whole lot of nothing for 30 years, then Jameson Crowder.
Yeah, Crowder. Yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, Crowder.
And in that time they had like Michael Westbrook and Rod Gardner, who were I think both first round picks. If I might be wrong.
Westbrook definitely was.
Yeah, but they were both high picks, both busts in the end. Westbrook had one good season, 2 good seasons, and then fell off the face of the earth.
Westbrook had the talent. He just didn't want to play football.
Right. He didn't have the mindset. So,
but there's been other busts and stuff. I mean, not just Josh Doxson. They've had other guys. I mean,
so many.
They've had the 3 guys, Devin Thomas and
Malcolm Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. Malcolm Kelly.
Fred Davis was with that.
He was a tight end technically, but yeah, Fred, throw him in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, all 3 of those guys proved to be busts. So it's like Washington just had horrible luck with receivers.
They did for a long time there, but you got Crowder. You had a couple good years out of him. I still feel like they should have kept him. I don't know why they didn't fight to keep him on this roster, but
I thought it was weird too. I would have kept him. I mean, wouldn't he have been? He would have been able to play a decent role with this team.
Yeah. I mean, he's only 30 now, right?
I don't know.
He's not old. Like he's still gonna have an NFL career for another couple seasons as it is. So.
Yeah, he's definitely not old.
No. Like that never made sense. That was a Bruce Allen trying to screw over Jay Gruden for some reason move. Because Jay wanted him. I remember that. And
or just Bruce Allen being incompetent.
That too. Oh, but I could get a 4th round pick for him in the comp draft. That's worth it. That's better than an 800-yard a season slot receiver, right? Another 4th round pick.
Wonder if Bruce Allen will ever be back in the NFL.
I hope if he does, they suspend him right away for conduct,
For what? Conduct?
We'll find something.
Just suspend him.
Look, it's politics, and Bruce loved politics, right? So you go, you dig, you find something.
Crowder's 28, by the way.
28. Oh, so
Yeah.
he's going to be right in his prime right now.
Yeah. No, I just can't imagine that anybody would hire Bruce Allen.
No, I
After
can't
everything that happened in Washington, who would be dumb enough to bring him in? Seriously.
Right? Unless you need somebody to pick your second pants color, don't bring in Bruce Allen. You know.
Even then, I wouldn't trust him.
Well,
he would
you
pick
don't
the
trust
wrong
him.
color.
No, you don't trust him because he's great at doing the snake in the grass, creeping his way back up. You know, he's worm
He might
tongue.
intentionally
like
pick a bad color
yeah,
just to throw you off, to make him look better and you look worse.
right, and then he'll find a way to get the blame on you.
In terms of on the field, I mean, there have been. I really haven't seen any news on the running back group, which is something I've been keeping an eye on.
Right.
No news at all there.
That's disappointing, frankly.
Yeah, no real news on Jamin Davis, which is somebody that I think we're keeping an eye out on.
I saw that they're keeping him at middle linebacker still. That's the
Middle.
only yeah. So he's not really flipping to the edge like we kind of all thought. And that Bostic is really kind of mentoring him and mentoring Cole Holcomb very heavily now.
Well, and ideally, I mean, you would want Bostic to be on the strong side and Davis in the middle, and then figure out what to do about the weak side. I mean,
I think it's Cole Holcomb, by default.
Well, Cole Holcomb can't cover, so I mean, you can't. He wouldn't be a 3-down linebacker in that situation. Is the problem?
Right. And that is the tricky part here, right? Like,
yeah, it is.
I'm with you that Holcomb's probably better on the strong side too.
That's why I thought Davis would be on the outside.
Yeah.
Put Davis on the weak side. He's the guy who's fast.
Well, maybe you do some Tampa 2 style stuff, and Davis is dropping into coverage as a middle most of the time. You know?
I just think that Ron maybe needs to call and check in with us before he makes these decisions. That's what I think.
Somebody needs to check with us, or
Steve Russ, the linebacker coach. Somebody needs to call the Hogsty and
yeah. We got to get Steve Russ on the show at some point and talk to him.
I'll work on it.
Yeah,
I'll work on it. We do.
Yeah. It is interesting because they do have those guys behind them that can do some interesting things. Like the depth behind those guys at linebacker, because it's really, they don't have linebacker depth. They have a safety who can be an edge rusher in that Cobra package. They have Landon Collins, who's again a box safety, but kind of a linebacker in a way. And then they have the rookie they just drafted out of Penn State, the defensive end, who's kind of really like an edge rusher.
Shaka Toney?
Yeah. Who everyone just assumes is going to be kind of like that edge rusher linebacker type, because he's too small to be a true defensive end, it looks like.
I don't think we really know about some of these backups at linebacker, though. I mean, like, who is Jordan Kunacek?
Yeah. Well, we know he's a special
player?
teamer.
I know, but I mean, can he play linebacker? I don't know. I mean, David Mayo is a legitimate NFL player.
Right.
So I think he's your primary depth in the middle, at least. It's him, because he's at least been around. He was in Carolina. You know, he's been in the NFL for 5 years, going into 6. But there's that, and like Jared Norris. I mean, can he play? I don't know. Justin Phillips. Who's that? So I mean, they could have depth.
Right.
We just don't really know, because we didn't see any of these. Even Kalik Hudson, we didn't really see much of him last year, particularly. So, and he's kind of like your Landon Collins in between, half safety, half linebacker type,
right,
as it is.
Well, but that's my point, is a lot of these guys who, like, if Cole Holcomb comes out, the guys who I'm like picturing going in, they're not really linebackers. They're safeties and ends who will do different things, That's going to be kind of interesting to watch once the season gets started.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Troy Apke, because I saw a little bit of rumor that the team was trying him at corner.
Yeah, I remember that.
I know that's maybe out of desperation more than anything else. Like, we need to do everything we can to try to find a place for our 4th-round draft pick from 3 years ago.
Right.
Because you're not a safety. You've proven that, Troy. You can't play safety.
You're okay on special teams, not great.
But his problem is he's got like 100 people he's competing with at corner.
Yeah. Well, there are certain positions they just have a lot of depth and competition. I saw a lot was being made of the fact that they have some serious competition for those final receiver spots this year.
They've got a ton of receivers. Look,
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's mistaken in thinking they're going to keep 7 receivers. I think that's crazy.
No,
I think
6 at the most.
yeah, and probably 5. And so, I mean, we've been over this, but obviously Terry has got 1 slot. Curtis Samuel's got 1 slot. But beyond that, I mean, I
Brown
think it's
has
totally
1.
up in the air.
By virtue of
Yeah,
being a high
Brown,
draft
right.
pick.
Brown has 1. He's right. So those 3 are in. And so then you've got basically in alphabetic order, Tony Brown, DeAndre Carter, Antonio Gandy-Golden, Kelvin Harmon, Adam Humphries, Dax Milne, Cam Sims, Steven Sims, and Isaiah Wright competing for 2, maybe 3 slots at most.
Right, 9 guys. And
Yep.
I've said it before. There are guys. I've heard that a lot of these guys are having good camps. First off, I've heard Harmon's been bouncing back nicely. Cam Sims was having a good camp until this injury he got. I even heard Steve Sims. Rivera was praising how he's been doing better about getting open underneath. And Isaiah Wright too was getting some praise from Rivera. So it's
a couple of them are
going to
end up. Yeah, a couple of them end up on the practice squad, but I mean they're going to have to cut a bunch of these guys.
Yeah,
including some draft picks. Probably. I mean, Kelvin Harmon is a draft pick. Don't forget.
Right. So is AGG.
Yeah.
And was he a 5th rounder or something? He's not a 7th round pick. He's a mid rounder or day 3 guy, early day 3 guy.
He's round 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, no, they're not going to give up on him. So he's either going to make the roster or be on the practice squad. I mean, Antonio Gandy-Golden is not going to get cut in year 2.
Right. It's just going to be, like you said, it's going to be interesting and a tough competition there because you can't keep them all. And I honestly like a handful of those guys. I like more guys than there are going to be spots from that last group.
Well, I mean, when you're talking to Isaiah Wright at night after dinner, when you're laying in bed, what does he say?
Not a whole lot. He's not a talker. He lets his play do the
talker?
talking.
Because, see, people, Isaiah Wright is from Temple.
Right. We got to get somebody from one of your alma maters on this team, and then I can do this to you.
Well, we'll talk about that off the air, maybe.
Yes.
I don't mind the joke, but it's got to, we'll have to talk about it
right.
off the air.
Well, people know you're a lawyer. You have multiple alma maters, too. We could say that.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of alma maters, but I've intentionally kept them off the air for a variety of reasons.
Right. Anyway, what else did we see this week? I'm trying. At this point, it's the hey Alex, let's scan Twitter and see what else was said about the football team.
It's been a very quiet camp, I
really
mean, there's been a little bit of drama about people, some tempers flaring and whatnot.
But that happens every year.
And that's not anything.
Freak out about that. It happens every year. It really does.
And it's competitive people in competitive situations. Tempers flare. I mean, I wouldn't worry about that anyway. They haven't had any injuries yet, so that's good.
Right.
I mean, Landon Collins has proclaimed himself healthy. The quote he gave Rhiannon Walker, I believe, was he's way better than before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you're way better than before, but that's what Landon says he is. And so Kenny, I mean, he hasn't been out that long, and Achilles is a tough injury to get over. So no matter what he says, I really do wonder if he's going to be actually ready to play by week 1. It's in his best interest to tell the world he is and to tell Rhiannon Walker that he is. But whether that's true or not, I find it hard to believe that he can come back that fast. Don't forget this happened in week 7 for him.
Right.
It wasn't like it was a year ago. I mean, this is like 9 months ago. It's a tough road for him, but he claims he's back.
Yeah, he does. The one thing about him that I saw when I was scanning through news articles about training camp was how he's been just kind of sticking with the safeties coach the entire time. Before he was 100% healthy, to try and get as much information as he could. And if you can't be on the field, at least be working out the mental side of the game. Which
hey, look, I
can't
mean,
hurt.
Landon feels Cam curl
Mm-hmm.
behind him. Landon, I think, probably is smart enough to understand he's got, like, that Cam curl came out of nowhere to be a legitimate NFL starter at his position. So Landon probably wants to do everything he possibly can to to compete, and that's I mean I applaud him for it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's the old, what do you call it? Wally Pip situation for him there.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
really
no,
is.
that's right. Um, but I mean, so that anyway, that's Landon Collins. I mean, there's not guys. Camp has been boring so
Yeah.
far.
Oh,
And oh, and by the way, when you listen to this, the Ashburn or the Richmond part of camp will be over.
mhm.
The fan participation part of camp will be over. Today, the day we're recording it, is Fan Appreciation Day, which is the last day. And then the rest of camp will be in Ashburn, with the exception of August 6th, which will be the pep rally at, or I don't know what they're calling it, but it's a pep rally at FedEx Field. So this is it. If you hopefully you got down to Richmond to see something, because it's either that or one day at Ashburn or at FedEx, and that's it. So
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just scanning what's going on in camp right now, because why not? It looks like Cam Sims is back out practicing, so that leg injury must have been minor. Brandon Scherf isn't out, and they haven't said why yet. He's not out there. Instead, they're using Wes Schweitzer at right guard. So that's
why?
interesting.
Can somebody explain to me why Washington's totally screwed up the situation with Brandon Scherf? I don't really get it.
I don't get it either.
I mean, this is a guy who's your first team All Pro in more than a generation.
Yeah.
I'm not counting Matt Turk, the punter.
No.
Why didn't they offer him a huge contract like 2
Right
years
away?
ago?
Yeah.
2 years ago. We didn't have to go down this franchise tag route. And if they truly knew, and if they really did, and I'm not talking about what the media reports or what fans think is I'm talking about a real heavy guaranteed money, big signing bonus, real contract. They could have done this 2 years ago, signed him for a reasonable deal. Because I agree. I mean, at this point, do you run a guard at $20 million a year? I mean, probably not.
You can't do it.
But
You can't do it.
but if he turned that down and they knew he turned it down, that means he doesn't want to be here. They should have traded him.
Yeah.
Instead we're stuck with this, and now there's going to be somebody who's not being developed for a year because we got to play Scherf at $18 million when knowing he's going to leave. So you have this sort of lame duck guard out here who they should have made a decision last year at the latest about him. Decide and do it. Either he's going to sign or we're going to trade him and we're going to move on. And do I think you ought to re-sign the first team All-Pro in a generation? Absolutely. But if it's just not going to happen, just letting it drag on it's like a Kirk Cousins Part 2 thing here. It's just bad for everybody. So I don't understand the Brandon Scherf situation. They have to play him now because they're not going to put $18 million on the bench. But all that does is hold back, pick your guard, whoever, Wes Schweitzer, Wes Martin, Eric Flowers, somebody.
Right.
That's
No.
my rant for the day.
Yeah, it is frustrating, isn't it? It really is. The one
seriously, and if he doesn't want to be here, they should have figured that out.
Yeah. Well,
And I mean, people like me would have complained about it, but it ultimately would have been the best thing if they had decided all this last season at the latest. But what they should, Washington keeps pulling this 5th-year option,
Right.
And then stringing them out and franchise tag people, and they haven't done a good job about just deciding. There's a lot of other teams that will offer extensions after the 3rd year, which is what the CBA allows. Like, for example, if the team doesn't offer Terry McLaurin a contract at the end of the 2022 season, they've lost their mind.
Right. Well, yeah. Frankly, what's the first day you can start negotiating with Terry McLaurin? That's the day you should start negotiating with Terry McLaurin.
It's going to be
It's sometime this
from
season,
a practical
right?
reality standpoint. It's going to be after the 2022 season. They probably can't sign him until the start of I would assume the start of the league year, maybe. But
Right.
the bottom line is in the 2023 offseason is when they need to do it.
Well, I mean, you know as well as I do, Steve, that there's talks that go on that don't actually happen. I would like to think that they've already talked to his people and said, as soon as he's ready, here's the thing that he can sign. And I'd like to think that they're that prepared, but I doubt they are.
The point is, don't go down this less franchise tag him and string it out. They don't have a first 5th-year option on him because he's a 3rd-round pick.
Right.
But I just hope to God they don't do this. Don't screw this up.
No.
Re-sign the man as soon as, but don't pull a Brandon Scherf on him for God's sakes. That's my point. So,
Sorry, I had to cough there, and I don't have a
I
mute
just
button.
tend to think. But back to Scherf, I mean, I think it's going to be a distraction
I
more
think
than
you're
anything
right.
else.
I think it is a distraction. Let's see. Anything else going on? No, just a lot of fun videos of people making plays. Here's Antonio Gibson catching a ball and turning it upfield. As much as I like seeing those highlights, we all know they don't mean as much in camp. It doesn't matter until somebody's hitting you.
I don't think they mean anything.
Yeah.
Frankly, because it's hard to understand the context of the situation. It looks good. It's fun to watch.
Right.
So there's value in it. But I don't put a lot of faith in those, like on an individual level, that they really mean something.
Yeah. Oh, here's the highlight that would be Robbie and Mai's man crushes meeting up. It's Taylor Heineke throwing to Isaiah Wright on a nice out route, and Heineke makes a diving catch.
The loves of your respective lives playing together.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, well, the only other thing I saw during camp that I thought was interesting was Tanya Snyder being out there and interacting with the fans alongside Jason Wright, which was just interesting to see. Like, they're throwing footballs and T-shirts at the fans and stuff like that.
I wonder what it would be like if you were an owner, a very egotistical, narcissistic owner,
right,
to be fired by the NFL and replaced by your spouse. What does that feel like?
Well, and how about this? And then see your spouse is out there smiling and with the fans and having fun, which he's never done.
All the things that you are mentally incapable of.
Right. Because when is the last time you saw video of Dan like running around high-fiving random fans or giving
that would
people
be
hugs?
Never, Alex. The answer is never. The only time I've ever seen him sort of have fun is that video of him dancing badly that I was always floating around in the booth at a game.
Yeah. That was when we were kicking the Packers' butts on like a primetime game.
Other than that, he's never had fun in his entire life, and now he gets to see his wife doing
and
all
Jason
the things
Wright.
he should have been doing. Yeah, there was I stumbled on when I was trying to advertise our content on Twitter. I think the first thing that popped up was a video of like Jason Wright dancing somehow.
Oh yeah, him with a couple
outside.
employees. It's not the electric slide. It looks like the electric slide.
So I don't even know what that is. I've heard the name, but I don't really honestly know what
it was. A dance from
like
like the 70s.
Okay, well, no wonder. So, but that's frankly, it looked like Jason was a bit awkward, but that's fine. Point is, they're doing those things, which gets fans excited and helps fans relate.
Right. Being a human
which is something that Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder never did because they weren't human beings; they were ego zombies.
Well, I'll give you just the times I've been at camp, and the one thing you always saw was Dan and Bruce would go. There's 2 football fields. The fans are all along the side of one football field. Bruce and Dan would go into the middle of the 2 football fields, and that's where they would hang out.
So nobody could get to him.
As far away from everyone as possible. Yes.
Let's pick the spot where we can look the most elite.
Right.
Most elitist.
Or exactly. And just not interact with people.
I think the only other real Redskins news or Washington news that we haven't discussed here this week is that Jason Wright has apparently said that the team has narrowed down the choices for the names.
Right.
Now, what's interesting is our colleague Dave Earl, he's been doing, if you guys haven't read it, you should. He's been doing weekly columns on the various name choices for like the last, month maybe or more.
Right.
And just to see what his opinion, but also to see what the fans think. And we've been running these polls for him. And this week's poll was basically in light of the Cleveland Indians taking about 5 minutes to decide they're going to become the Cleveland Guardians. What do former Redskins fans, think about this? My vote has been, this is taking way too long. This is just ridiculous. Pick a name. But I'm in the minority, as it turns out here. And,
I didn't know that. I didn't see how the poll came out.
The poll came out like 60-40-ish. to I think it was 60-40 in favor of they're taking the right approach, which surprises me quite a bit, to be honest. But the news is that the team has narrowed down the choices. Now that could mean a lot of things because they had, what did you say, Alex? 10,000 names or something.
I think they got 10,000 submissions or over 10,000 submissions.
So narrowing it down could mean they narrowed it down to 5,000, which would qualify as narrowing down.
Right. I mean, I'm sure it's probably down to maybe they're down to 10. Let's say that's the number, which would still be a lot. I can't tell you 10 name ideas I've heard that I've liked. I can tell you.
Here's why I saw the Jason Wright videos, because you forwarded it on the Hogstyle.
Yeah, because I thought it was. I think it's charming when a team president actually interacts with people. Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And has fun.
But anyway, but what they didn't do is tell us what names they've narrowed it down to.
Right.
So we're gonna wring our hands for another 6 months about this, apparently.
Well, I mean, we've basically been told that they're gonna come out with this after the season. In 2022, they'll announce it. My guess is it's a week or two after the Super Bowls when we get it. But within that first month, that's when they'll say, "Here's the
definitely won't be during this. Definitely won't be during Super Bowl week because they don't want the lead to get buried in like that."
The only way I could see that, and tell me if I'm crazy, this is me, like if I were doing some marketing scheme, you're going to have it picked out by then, but let's say somehow you're in the Super Bowl. You announce it right then that week. And that would create like a huge hoopla, I think.
Yeah, but what are the odds? Yes.
Odds
but that would
are
require
almost
Washington
zero.
to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something. I think we'll know ahead of time because people like me will keep up with the trademark filings.
Right. It'll leak at some point.
Yeah. Right. That's would be my guess, is that I will know ahead of time, one way or the other, because of the trademark rules.
Sure. It is interesting to me, like, I'm sure you weren't following it with Cleveland. I didn't see anybody leak that one though. That didn't come out.
No, but I wasn't following it at all.
No, you weren't.
I
but
mean,
I'd assume Cleveland has at least one baseball fan who's a lawyer who would have thought to do that.
Maybe they did, though. I mean, again, it's Cleveland. Who pays attention to Cleveland but Cleveland?
That's fair. That's fair.
The people in Cleveland are the only ones who paid attention to the Cleveland. The people of Cleveland and the fans of the movie Major League are the only ones who pay attention to the Cleveland baseball team.
Right. I mean, that's kind of true with Washington now at this point. Their national...
I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah.
That's true.
Their national reputations disappeared. So.
We've been a national embarrassment for a while.
Yeah.
But they're overcoming that. But all this to say, the only other news is that the name selections are narrowed, but nobody defined what that meant.
Right.
So there you go. Take that for what you will, people.
Sure. Well, I think that should wrap us up this week, honestly. I don't have anything else on my sheet of interesting topics. It sounds like we're stretching thin if we're talking about Jason Wright saying something vague. So, thank you guys for joining us this week. I'm sure we're going to see more training camp highlights next week and as they go back to Ashburn. Because just because they're leaving Richmond doesn't mean camp is over. It just means they're not doing anything in Richmond.
We may or may not be at camp this year, depending on how things go. We have been told that the NFL is narrowing and making it difficult to send a lot of reporters to camp because of the coronavirus rules. So we Alex may or may not be there. We will find out.
Yeah. Yep, we'll find out about that. So, other than that, guys, I hope you've all enjoyed watching the highlights on Twitter and Instagram and all that this week. And we'll talk to you next week. Later.
Bye.